Today's message from Reverend Christian Sorensen was recorded July 17th, 2016, and it's titled Boxed In. Subtitled, Let Your Actions Be Your Prayer, and Let Your Prayers Be Action. In a partial quote from Ernest Holmes, it must flow through us in order to manifest for us.
Feel the joy, feel the peace, and the comfort of home, 'cause all are welcome here. Yes, all are welcome here.
Okay, so Be the Change, that is perfect for this morning. This morning's message is boxed in. I love the writing that was in our reading today. I enjoy all of us being on the same page every day and doing the reading and thinking in the same way. It's great. And this month has been about creativity, and really it's about getting outside the box. And I was talking about the creative aspect of things. And Pokemon, you see what they did? They were really getting people outside their house this week. Oh my goodness, called Pokemon Go. And I won't say kids, I mean, people are out there. It takes them outside their house. It's a new technology that Nintendo did that had 15 million apps downloaded by the middle of the week. Their stock went from 20 billion to 31 billion in just like a week. But it's a technology that takes Pokemon, and they walk outside with their camera and they're looking in there and they're watching. And one lady I read ended up getting locked inside in Georgia, inside the cemetery. And she called 911, "Get me out of here!" And in Del Mar, you see two guys walked off the cliff following this. So when you get outside the box, doesn't mean you want to be disconnected, from it all. But it is amazing what creativity will do, whether it's through technology and whether it's in our lives. And so we want to get out to be that creative expression by all means. But also what I've noticed is sometimes we allow ourselves to just be boxed in by the heaviness that is going on. I stopped to think, like 3 weeks in a row now I've stood up here because of world events that are going on. And it's interesting when a world event of the magnitude that's been taking place of recent times happens on the minister's listserv. There's always chatter and commentary, and I get some ideas from there. This week, zero. I mean, I don't know if the ministers have just run out or just tired, but have just become boxed in. And so what I really want us to be able to do is not to be boxed in by the heaviness of the things that are going on. One of the things that did show up this week, part of the Evolutionary Leaders, which wonderful group, kind of headed by Deepak and Gene Houston, and Joan Brzezinko, she shared this poem, and it was just kind of comforting because of the heaviness that is there. And it's by an American essayist and author by the name of Wendell Berry. He's from, I think, Kentucky area. And it said, it's just short, it says, "When despair for the world grows in me, and I awake in the night at the least sound in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in the beauty of the water and the great herons feed. And I come into a peace of wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time I rest in grace of the world, and I'm free." You return to nature. What do you do at a time like this when you just can't get it? Because what I've noticed is my head, it almost like ping pongs or a tennis match that goes on in there with what's going on in spiritual truth. And, one of the beautiful things about our spiritual mind treatment, it's almost like that tennis going back and forth. It's like this is what's going on in the world, but the spiritual truth is one of peace. But this is what's happening out here. But, I want to begin to see as Spirit sees. As I shared last week, it's like being in the washing machine in the agitation cycle where all the dirt is coming to the surface. So I'm going to choose to trust dust, but it's not as if I don't question or I'm not brought to my knees and wonder what's going on in this world, but it's like I want to bring it back to being able to see and to understand His Spirit, because what I recognize as one follows the passageway into the infinite and steps through that door, it only happens if we can quiet the mind and its chatter that wants to be able to define and understand and articulate what it sees or what is going on. And what happens when you go into the unknown, there is really no reference for it. There isn't really a description of one going into a place that they haven't been before. I mean, have you ever seen colors in a dream state that are not in this world? You see things that there are not words to describe. When you go to the mountaintop, you still have to come back, and what you have seen from that mountaintop oftentimes cannot be articulated, but you still can live from that vibration. You still can live from that place of having been there. But you've got to be willing to open up to that. You've got to be willing to go to that place and recognize that Spirit moves here. And as we do, we recognize that what is possible sometimes is beyond what it is that can be debated. Because our mode of conversation so often is in the box. It's either this or it's that. Like the British, what's going on in Britain. You're either in or you're out. It's either pro or it's con. It's either yes or it's no. And in the issues of today, it's not really A versus B, but yet that seems to be our static debating conversation, when all of a sudden we've got to move beyond the static debate conversation to one of conversation, of exploring, of recognizing that there's more than just two sides to the equation. It's not remain or leave, but the conversation, the question would be, what is best for Britain and the EU? What is the highest and best for everyone involved here? It's innovation, it's evolution, it is something new, and in our dialogues, we've got to come to a place to recognize that there's a greater possibility here that works for everyone. And did you see, like, I don't know if it's her campaign lead line, but the new British Prime Minister, I think her name is Theresa May, it's a country that works for everyone. Kind of sounds like our saying here, a world that works for everyone. That's what's coming on out there. We want it to work for everyone. It's not my way or the highway, but you know what? There's got to be more to be understood here. I've got a cousin, a French cousin, who considers themselves European Union, who teaches at the university in England, and is just devastated that she is losing that kind of citizenship or how things are changing. But yet I listened to a Lynn McTaggart, who's a good friend of our community, who is just really big on the circuit with the residents and all sorts of scientific discoveries in unified fields. And she says, now imagine the U.S., you're part of NAFTA, and you've got all these states who have an equal vote, and all of a sudden, Mexico gets a partner, and they decide they want to do that, and the United States no longer has any say. And we're going to the Ameriu, which is like the EU currency, and so we're no longer going to use the dollar, we're going to use the Ameriu, which is the currency for everything. You no longer have a say. How would you feel, America, about that? And so all of a sudden, I can see both sides. And so the question comes down, what is the highest and best for all concerned? What is a world that works for everyone? What is a nation that can work for everyone? How can I begin to open my mind and get outside of the box where I have been? How can God enter into what is going on? Because what's going on in the world raises questions within me. What's going on the outside is a reflection of what takes place on the inside. Am I able to get outside of the box and open my mind to go to a place where I don't quite have yet definition for an unknown experience, but I am open to trust God here? I'm willing to have faith here. Krishnamurti, wonderful Indian saint raised in America, he said, the mind can only learn when it is innocent and vulnerable. It can only learn if I do not need to defend my position A versus B. There's only space for that new to emerge if I am vulnerable or open. They're just words to saying I'm willing to be receptive to what's outside of what has been known heretofore. And the way I get there is I go to God. You know, the best way to start your day is to wake up and just partner with Spirit. You know what, God, today I'm bringing you into breakfast with me. I'm taking you to work with me, God. And when I go to the bank, God, I know you're there too. In my ever-expanding bank account. You know, and when I converse with, I'm going to see God here. And, you know, when I'm on the phone or when I'm in a controversial question, you know what? I'm going to go to the mountaintop and I'm going to know God is here. And what begins to happen is Spirit begins to show up in ways in which I begin to recognize, wow, here's a revelation. Here's how Spirit has presented itself in this moment that is beyond my logical thinking. I don't know where it came from, but it came. Because I've chosen to start this day. And how you start this day is you find a phrase. If it's not happening, say, you know, Spirit and I are one. You know, I and the divine are one. And you say it 100 times. But saying it 100 times doesn't make it so. Even though it is already so. It doesn't make it so for you. You are the one who's got to be willing to take the action with it. You're the one who's got to be willing to go with it and bring it into those tough places, a question of mind or your experience. You know, and if you cannot experience happiness in the midst of, you know, upheaval or distress, then why bother with that spiritual practice? Is what I've heard said. You know, it's like, if it's not bringing you to a place of being able to be happy even when you are in that controversial question, then what's with that spiritual practice? Because our spiritual practice is to be applied everywhere. You know, you don't just find God in the Himalayas or some ancient monastery. I mean, you can, but everything that is going on in our life is our spiritual practice. You've been hearing me say this, but whether it's parenting or preaching or education or meditation or sex and drugs or family or what have you, that is the ground in which you are to practice your Spirit in your life. That's your responsibility, is to remember to bring Spirit there, which is why I said you wake up in the morning, say, okay, God, I'm waking up, I'm starting my day, and you and I, we're doing this together. We always do, but I'm going to be conscious of it. And that's the key, is being conscious of that. And what the spiritual practice will do will bring you a sense of freedom from what's going on in the outside world, because you are operating from the inside, from the kingdom that is within you. That's where you're coming from. You know, the Buddha said that the water of all the great oceans have the same taste, the taste of salt, as do the teachings of all the great teachings have the same taste. That's the taste of liberation. It's a taste of liberation. Am I able to be free? Which means not anxious if things aren't going the way I thought they are. Not anxious if it's non-perfect from my perspective. You know, the universe or the world isn't perfect from my perspective, but just maybe it is unfolding to plan, a divine plan. Maybe we are moving to a world that works for everyone, and we're in that space between articulating and affirming the spiritual truth, and it's manifesting, and we're in that part where we are purging and agitating and cleaning out that which doesn't match it. And I have stepped outside the box, and it's a little dirty out here. It's a little messy right here, but I'm going to believe that something is coming together. There is a Belgian chemist, Isla Peregrine, who won the 1977 Nobel Prize. It was known for self-organizing systems, and taught at universities in America. And one of the things he said is, as large systems fail, innovations begin to function everywhere. And in the process, these innovative functioning systems begin to connect in an exponential kind of way, bringing forth a new system greater than the sum of its parts. You follow that? They talk fancy, but bottom line is as things fall apart, there's something that is innovation that starts showing up everywhere. They start connecting, and all of a sudden the new system is greater than the sum of its parts. The new system is greater than what was no longer working. As the old systems are no longer working, we've got to be able to open up and be willing to say, hey, it's not working here. Not get into defense, but step outside the box. Okay, if it's not working, what needs to happen? And that's the dialogue and the conversations that are beginning to happen in our country. But what happens is something else, and it swings our attention away. We had, Baton Rouge, Louisiana, we had Dallas, and all of a sudden now we're over in France. And that's horrific what took place there. I've got a cousin who I visited there who's just devastated by what took place. Nancy Chappie from Seaside got off the boat on Bastille Day in Nice and was in the hotel right there who wrote back and said, wow, and the conversation is there. Then all of a sudden we're over in Turkey. We got a coup that is going on. And we begin to forget that we need to address what is emerging and not allow just over here and over there, what America, with what took place in Louisiana or in the Midwest or in Dallas, and the conversation of Black Lives Matters, and of course, all lives matter, but you know what? That's not the conversation that we need to have about all lives. It's like I'm going to a funeral and I want to talk to the people about my dad's death. That's not the conversation that other person's funeral is about. The conversation here is about racism that's been part of our country since its conception for the last 400 years, and it's now coming to the surface. It's not as if it's just starting, but we have the technology showing us, look what's going on. This racism is there. There's bigotry that is going on within our country. And what's going on this planet is not as if there haven't been wars and people have been trying to create genocide and wiping out cultures for eons. It's just in our face, and we're at a point of saying this is not acceptable any longer. We are one human family on one planet, and we have got to figure out how to make this work together. And we need to step outside of the box, go to that infinite passageway to a place we have not been yet, and recognize that it's not an either-or conversation here, but rather there is something deeper that wants to emerge to those that are willing to be in a consciousness with God to bring forth the next step in evolution for humanity. And so we can't remain silent. See, that's participating in the violence. When things are coming up, I feel I'm just going to remain quiet and know it's all going to work out okay. That is creating the space for that which is not working to perpetuate itself and to gather the troops to make that stronger. We've got to be willing to get into a conversation and be uncomfortable and to explore what is going on inside of me and to create the space where we can take a look and put it on the table and begin to recognize, look at what has been lurking below the surface. It's time to bring it up, to be willing to have the conversation and have other people say, well, you know what? I'm just going to pray and know the truth, love and light, and all is good. Prayer is awesome. It is fabulous. Bringing love and light is divine. But let's make it real, guys. Let's not just say it and maybe think about it once, but let's be willing to speak it out loud. Let's speak it in groups and communities. Let's pray together. Join us. Join me on, or one of the ministers here, Monday through Thursday. We pray out loud together at noonday meditation. We pray here on Sunday morning. Speak it. You've got to be willing to speak this truth and let your actions be your prayer. They say, you're praying for rain. The saying is what? Make sure you bring the umbrella with you. You bring the hoe with you if you're praying for rain. Did you see this picture? Marv, can you send this one? This is going to be one of those iconic ones like this kid in front of the tanks. People say, Christian, where was that? France? Where was that picture? No, that's here in Louisiana. Here is a young mother in a sundress standing by herself. Look how composed she is, looking right beyond. She is in a divine line with spirit. You talked about prayer in action. A mother of a young boy, a nurse, and being these guys riot gear right out of Star Wars, hauling her off to jail. Isha, thrown in jail. But that is prayer in action. That is fearless stance. These guys in riot gears. It went viral, that picture. It's all over. It'll probably be cover of Time, at this point. But let us be brave enough and say there's something going on. And I'm going to bring God here because I'm uncomfortable. Or whatever is going on for me. I'm going to allow my prayers to be spoken and to be the truth. You know, Ernest Holmes, he's the founder of religious science. And he writes in his book, The Science of Mind, that it's easy enough to rush around shouting that there are no sick or there are no problems. Everything's good. But this will never heal those who appear to be sick. I mean, it's easy to proclaim that there are no needy. Anyone can say that, whether they be wise or otherwise. But if we are to prove such statements to be facts in our experience, we shall be compelled to do more than just to announce principle, no matter how true they may be. This is the crux of the whole matter. Infinite and immutable as the law is, ever present and available as it must be, the potential possibility of all human probability, it must flow through us in order for it to manifest. That love that we know is the truth, that peace that we know is the truth, is what we bring. And let us not fear anger, because there is a lot of truth and information that is expressed in emotion. Let us be willing to be present with what is, without needing to make anything wrong or needing to correct it, but to be present to the pain, to be witness to what's going on. You know, remember, Diane Fossey, Gorillas in the Mist, her mentor, protege, George Schaller, was out there and with the gorillas. And he was really the first to document the primates and the troops and the families and the interaction, the hierarchy, and all those kind of things. And, the people had tried for years to do that, and they said, "What is your secret?" And he says, "It's very simple, one thing. I showed up without a gun." Those men that were out there with their long rifles, they could feel the hatred or the anger or the fear, and they never came around. But it was when Schaller and Fossey just sat and were present that they began to see. The great American sage George Washington Carver said, "Anything will reveal itself if you love it enough." If you love it enough. Love is the key, but you've got to be present to be in that place of love. Andrea Kurtzley, girl, her dad was a National Geographic photographer. She grew up in West Africa, did elementary school in Montessori in Kentucky. She high school in France. She was getting her master's in anthropology or medical anthropology. She decided to go to Nigeria, one of the small towns, and out there it was a 2-day donkey ride, she says, from any medical support. She went to this village appalled by, the poverty that was there, the fact that the weather patterns had changed. They used to be able to get 5-month window of possible rains. It got down to 1 to 3 months, and the children, half of them die of dehydration, malnutrition. The water, they would walk 30 miles to dig mud holes and get this contaminated water. They fight the animals for it and other people. And she got there, set her tent up the first night, and woke up in the morning, and one of the guys in the village walked 20 miles by moonlight to another village to get a goat to bring back so they would have meat for her breakfast, and what she saw was love. What she saw was the connection of the people and the caring, and she was so moved that she wanted to do something for the people that she went back and raised the money to drill a well. I guess the water moved 600 feet underground, but they could never have it. And she was able to bring a well to that village. She then spoke to Montessori International Convention, and the Montessori schools decided to help support. We even helped our Montessori school this spring. Remember when we gave money to support their project in Africa? I mean, the kids decided, hey, let's get little baby food jars and just put them in bathrooms. And when anybody ever turned on some water to say, hey, what about places where there is no water? People, little cut, can't wash it. They don't have water for 9 months to take a bath or a shower. A blemish, can infect and kill them. And all of a sudden the jars filled up, and now they're building wells in that area. What Be the change. Do what it is that you can do. Be willing to sit with the issue at hand and go to a place that hasn't been visited yet to come up with something that is beyond A or B, in or out, pro or con. Chris Fontana, he's a high school teacher in Chicago. This was, I guess, a little while ago, but he, right after Thanksgiving, he didn't have a lesson plan. The bell rang. He was supposed to, what am I going to do? So he took a current event. It happened to be about the rainforest and the Amazon being destroyed as an acre and a half per second. He shared it with the kids. The freshman high school student said, hey, let's start an ecology club here. The administration said, that's we don't need to do that. It's not necessary. But what the teachers and the custodians decided to do is they were going to support the students. So they saved all the used and unused paper in the cabinets through the next couple of weeks. And just before Christmas, they hauled it out into the center of the cafeteria. And it was a mountain of paper. The kids called the news station. The news station showed up, reported that. Do you know right away that school had an ecology club going on? Yeah. See, these are the kinds of things that we are capable of doing. We get to be the change. If we're willing to step outside of the box and just quiet the chatter in my mind, I can't do this, it hasn't been done, won't be done, what will they be thinking? It's controversial. Just quiet that so you can take that passage to that mountaintop and begin to see something, a new place from where you can live, because the soul has always risen to the challenge that has been put before it, whether it's at the individual level or at the collective level. The Dark Ages, man, that was dark, nasty stuff. The dredge of the 14th century was horrendous, but within a generation, the Renaissance, Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Raphael, you had Columbus, Magellan, Vasco da Gama, these great explorers. You had Copernicus, changed the way we looked at the cosmos and started the whole scientific exploration. Out of chaos comes Renaissance, and we are at that time, but we must not lose sight and just get tired because we have been boxed in by the news and the bombardment and shifting to this flag and then this flag and this flag to look at, forgetting where it all started. Let us not forget that we are one human family on one planet together, trying to figure this out, and we have spoken the truth of wholeness and love and peace prevailing, and we are in that part between the affirmation, declaration, and pronunciation of what is the spiritual truth and its manifestation, and the agitation is just getting the dirt out of the way so we can live it as a reality, and we have been born for a time such as this. I love you. Yes.
Such a long Yes, all are welcome here. Behold the love. Behold the light in your mind, in your heart, in your soul. And all your searchings brought you to this place. You cry for mercy and you long for grace. Feel the love, feel the light. Won't you come in from the cold? 'Cause all are welcome here. Feel the joy. Yes, all are welcome here.
All Are Welcome Here, from the album Path of Light, was co-written by Peggy Lebo and Reverend Christian Sorensen. It's available at www.peggylebo.com.